Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. We're going to be talking today about AI. We're going to be talking about DARPA, specifically Project ASIMOV and CARCOSA, and a whole slew of other things. Hopefully it'll all pull together. We're going to be covering a little clip from Metal Gear Solid 2, the AI codex, codex clip or whatever, because that is super creepy and ties into all of this. So we should just go ahead and get into it. I will say right off the bat, the theme of this, what I want to discuss here in this video is sort of how people are getting set up. Everybody, I mean, not just one side or whatever. I think that what we're seeing is, well, for example, let's bring a recent we'll bring something recent into this. So we're seeing right now a lot of discussion about certain topics online that not that long ago would seemingly be verboten on mainstream platforms and were relegated to more the fringe platforms. So that's now, the question is why, and why now? We're also seeing certain influencers that always before towed certain lines now entertaining discussions about taboo topics or controversial sounding things. And my question is, why are they allowing this? We know that they are pushing this idea of disinformation, misinformation, malinformation, as if that there's something that needs to be created, right, to monitor essentially the internet. And I think that we're moving into very scary times. I think that the police state is actually already here, and it's being rolled out slowly as we speak. It's just not overt and in your face. Like, you're not going to go into a Siberian gulag. However, something else might happen to you, right? I think that they look for ways to neutralize people without their fingerprints being there, right? And so I think that people are simply being set up to feed data into systems that are going to be used to censor them later, and not just censor them, but actually prosecute them for pre-crime. And you'll see what I mean as we talk about things like BCIs, like Neuralink, for example. So let's go ahead and start. Let's just get right into it. I'm going to jump into this, and we're not going to read everything because I want to keep this video as short as it can be. We're talking about some important and heavy topics, but I do want to give a little bit of a rundown into the background of just kind of what is going on, what's happening, because this stuff is happening whether you like it or not, and whether you want to participate in it or not. So this is an article from Whitney Webb's outlet, Unlimited Hangout, Weaponizing Reality, the Dawn of Neuro Warfare. And this is super, super important. I do not see enough people, in my opinion, warning about this. I see people bickering about nonsense, honestly. Like, they have people arguing over petty, quote, culture war manufactured nonsense when this is what's going on in the background, in a myriad of other concerning things as well. My goodness. Like, the hour is late, guys, okay? And you'll see that from watching this. Elon Musk's brain-computer interface BCI company Neuralink made headlines earlier this year for inserting its first brain implant into a human being. You can actually now, Elon Musk has put up on X a video of the first human Neuralink patient controlling, I think it's like his computer or something with his mind. It is very eerie. So you can watch that. Like, we've now seen video of it, allegedly. That's what it purports to be. Musk says such implants, which are described as, quote, fully implantable, cosmetically invisible, and designed to let you control a computer or a mobile device anywhere you go, are slated to eventually offer, quote, full bandwidth data streaming directly to the brain. BCIs are quite the human achievement. As described by the University of Calgary, quote, a BCI is a system that determines functional intent. That is important. Put a feather in your hat. Who says that? Oh my God, that was such a boomer thing to say. Okay, so put a mental note of this. Make a mental note of the fact that the BCIs determine your intent. So the desire to change, move, control, or interact with something in your environment coming from your brain. They're using reading your brain waves to figure out and allow you to control an application using your mind. So if you haven't seen it yet, plug real quick, go watch my video on Neuralink. I have it up here on the channel. I don't think many people watched it, but it shows you some very concerning things. We'll just say that. And it also gets into the history of mind control stuff. So just check that out. Developers and advocates of BCIs and adjacent technologies emphasize they can help people regain lost abilities due to aging, ailments, accidents, or injuries, and then, thus improving their quality of life. I know Elon has talked about wanting to have something called telepathy and then another thing called blind sight. So he wants Neuralink to be able to allow a blind person to now see. So it's going to be initially marketed in ways like this of, oh, this is a medical improvement device. This is going to help people who need help. For example, a Swiss BCI company has allowed a paralyzed man to walk again just by thinking. Others go further. Neuralink's goal is to help people, quote, surpass able-bodied human performance. Sir, is that ableism? Okay. So it's just crazy. Like, some of these are, of course, great medical achievements. I'm sure that, the people who are benefiting from this, like the paralyzed man who can now walk again, just using the power of his mind, I'm sure that has to be a remarkable improvement in your daily life. However, there's always the other side of that, right? These technologies always have multiple uses or dual uses. They almost always have a military or intelligence capability as well, like surveillance, electronic monitoring. They're monitoring all of these brainwaves. They say that their ability is to determine your intent. So when we talk about things like, I don't know, pre-crime prosecutions, they're going to be able to say, well, look, the BCI was able to determine your intent. Like, it read your mind and knew that you wanted to do something in the future. Like, you know what I mean? Just think about how that could be abused. That's scary to me. And I know it sounds kind of like goofy to suggest that, but they did just, announce a new federal red flag resource center. So I don't know. I find this all very concerning. Concerns arise with such advancements, and the tech is already being used for questionable purposes. Yes, to better plan logistics and boost productivity. For example, some Chinese employers have started using what they call, quote, emotional surveillance technology to monitor workers' brainwaves, which, quote, combined with AI algorithms, can spot incidences of workplace rage, anxiety, or sadness. The example showcases how personal the technology can become as it is normalized in daily life. So imagine that this is your future. You're at work and you did a little wrong think, and all of a sudden, you get the knock. You're on the naughty list. Like, this is insane. You didn't feel enough love for the state. Uh-oh, now you're in trouble. The ethical ramifications of BCIs and other emerging neurotechnologies do not stop at the consumer market or workplace. Governments and militaries are already discussing and experimenting on the roles they could play in wartime. Indeed, you guys know they've been interested in that for a very long time. Many are describing the human body and brain as the war's next domain. I've been saying that for years. We talked about mind war MK Ultra, their entire history of literally just that, and how they themselves are saying that yes, the next domain of warfare is the human mind. That's the new battlefield. With a 2020 NATO-backed paper on, quote, cognitive warfare, describing the phenomenon's objective as, quote, making everyone a weapon. The brain will be the battlefield of the 21st century. So if that's the case, and they want to make everybody a weapon for what? For the continuation of, like, NATO or something? Like, where does this go? You have to support defense companies wanting to send your husbands and sons and brothers and uncles overseas to make more profit. And no, like, this is just insane. And this is why they want to control so badly, not just like speech, but they want to control the what information you can see and how that information is presented to you. Like, they are going to tell you what to think about things. On this new battlefield, quote unquote, an era of neuroweapons, which can broadly be defined as technologies and systems that could either enhance or damage a warfighter or target's cognitive and or physical abilities, or otherwise attack people or critical societal infrastructure, has begun. In this exploration of the race to apply the latest neurotech to war and beyond, I investigated how the neuroweapons of tomorrow, including BCIs that may allow for brain-to-brain or brain-to-machine communication, have the capacity to expand conflicts into a new domain, the brain, while also bringing a new dimension to both hard and soft power struggles of the future. In response to ongoing neurotech developments, some allege neuro rights, quote unquote. Yeah, this is how they always remember what I said about these people, and you can always apply this about what Lenin said about the best way to control the opposition is to actually lead it ourselves. So when you see prominent anti-trafficking organizations, shall we say, with people on the board or people attending these functions that you may think are questionable, certain philanthropists, well, it becomes very clear, like, what is happening there. And I think the same could be said perhaps about the neuro rights community. Some allege neuro rights will protect people's minds from possible privacy infringements and myriad ethical issues that new neurotechnologies may pose in the years to come. However, neuro rights advocates' close proximity to the very organizations advancing these neurotechnologies deserves scrutiny and potentially suggests that the neuro rights movement is poised instead to normalize advanced neurotechnology's presence in daily life, perhaps forever changing humans' relationship with machines. And that is absolutely true. You know, that the whole goal is to suggest that we need to, this is going to be ubiquitous. Like, that's the claim they always make of why we need to start, you know, working on neuro rights. They're doing the same thing with AI. The premise is already given that AI is going to play this big role in the future. Like, that is the presupposition that this is going with. And so they say, oh, we want to advocate for AI rights and this and that, or rights, human rights, you know, as regards AI, like putting them out of work, for example. Well, all of it hinges on, like, literally not just the normalization of this stuff, but the integration of it in society, so much so that you would need to have this legislation. It all is very sketchy. It's sus, you know? Neuroscience's very origins lie in war. As Dr. Wallace Mendelson explains in Psychology Today, quote, just as American neurology was born in the Civil War, the roots of neuroscience are embedded in World War II, unquote. He explains while the bond between war and neuroscience has contributed to meaningful advances for the human condition, like improved understanding of things like PTSD, it has left some worried about neuroscience's possible military applications. Controversial yet well-known government attempts to learn more about the brain include Project Bluebird / Artichoke, a 1950s era project that worked to determine whether people could be involuntarily made to carry out assassinations through hypnosis, as well as the especially infamous MK Ultra, where human mind control experiments were carried out in a variety of institutions in the 50s and 60s. These projects' respective conclusions, however, did not signal an end to the government's interest in invasive mind studies and technologies. Rather, governments around the world internationally have been interested in the brain sciences ever since, investing heavily in neuroscience and neurotech research. Initiatives and research explored in the article, like the Brain Initiative and the US's DARPA Next Gen Non-Surgical Neurotechnology N3, are often portrayed as altruistic strides toward improving brain health, helping people recover lost physical or mental abilities, and otherwise improving quality of life. However, a deeper look reveals a prioritization of military might. Yes, that makes sense. So I'm going to leave that there. This article is actually quite long and detailed, and I really encourage you to read it. It will absolutely disturb you, I can tell you that. And again, it's very well researched, very well sourced. It's scary. It really is. Okay. And so I highly recommend you read it. It is quite long and detailed, but it is absolutely worth your time. I will, of course, link that article in the video description, but we are going to move on now to talk about some other issues. I just wanted to lay the groundwork for that for you guys because I think it's important. Now, moving on to Defense One. The big AI research DARPA is funding this year. The Defense Department's key research arm will be experimenting with ethical chatbots in new robot super pilots. Okay, so that's what they're investing in. In its most recent budget request, DARPA is asking for increased spending for a handful of key AI projects focused on human-machine teams, AI reasoning, and highly autonomous AIs that follow the Defense Department's AI ethics principles. And by the way, who do you think is coming up with their ethical AI principles? It's people like Eric Schmidt, the former head of Alphabet and Google. That Eric Schmidt, who famously said in an interview that the goal of Google when someone typed in a question or Googled something was to only give you one response instead of giving you a variety of sources to look through. Like, do you see where this is going? Okay, it's all following a continuum, and it's all about controlling information. Not only that, but controlling how that information is presented to you, the quote context, as they like to say, which is why we're going to get into the Metal Gear Solid 2 segment, because that is so creepy. Thinking too how that was from 2001 is frightening to me. Like, what did he see? What did he know? Perhaps the most important AI program DARPA is looking to fund in fiscal year 2025 is the Rapid Experimental Missionized Autonomy, or REMA. I hate that they give everything a creepy sounding acronym, which seeks to, quote, enhance commercially available and stock military drones with a subsystem to enable autonomous operations, autonomous drones. Yeah. In other words, it would give remotely piloted drones purchased anywhere new powers to make decisions. DARPA is asking for $13.8 million for the program this year, up from a request for $5 million last year, in order to, quote, continue to develop software, integrate with other performers, test, refine, and retest REMA solution through multiple development cycles. Another program called Autonomy Standards and Ideals with Military Operational Values, or ASIMOV. Yeah, like, the science fiction writer, will test how well Defense Department autonomous weapons adhere to the department's safety and ethics principles. They're requesting $22 million this year, up from $5 million last year, to test autonomous weapons software against complex scenarios involving ethical decisions. A big theme among the AI programs getting first funding or increased funding this year is the idea of human-machine interaction, or symbiosis, as DARPA calls it. Really? Really? In one example, a new program called Access in AI and Human-Machine Symbiosis will seek to make chatbots, quote, capable of realistic and positive dialogue, unquote, and, quote, initiate designs for large pre-trained models supplemented with legal sources to propose legal actions to deter adversaries. DARPA is requesting $13 million for it. They want AI to start writing laws. That's what they're saying. Another program will look at how large language models similar to ChatGPT, to better understand how well they do abstract reasoning and, quote, initiate development of techniques to enable transparent and logical communications between human and AI models, unquote. They want $9.5 million for that. DARPA also wants to build off its success with AI pilots and is requesting nearly $41 million, nearly double the amount it requested for it last year, for a program called Air Intelligence Reinforcements, or AIR. They'll look to automate tactical control tasks, transforming junior pilots from low-level tacticians into high-level mission commanders. For unpiloted platforms, AIR will enable vehicles to perform missions with minimal human oversight. Machines deciding things. Previous DARPA funding in AI led to advancements that moved to the commercial world, such as Siri. So military advancements in newest AI tech could shape the field for decades to come. Yeah, that's right. So keep that in mind, guys. Oligarch here on X says, full spectrum dominance. Develop advanced technology and centralized military research. In-Q-Tel and DARPA. For people unfamiliar with In-Q-Tel, that is the CIA's Silicon Valley venture capital firm that has invested in tons of, essentially, like all of the Silicon Valley companies that get their, that they're getting funding from the CIA. And it's weirder than you think. Like genetics companies, biotech companies, like they are in everything. And that should scare you. Roll out through universities and commercial entities for the consumer products. ARPANET, Google, LifeLog, genetic engineering, robotics, AI, etc. And it links to an article which I myself have covered before in prior videos on my channel. That article is entitled Google's True Origin Partly Lies in CIA and NSA Research Grants for Mass Surveillance, going back to total information awareness. And it's so interesting to me how people don't understand that literally all of this stuff is military technology first. Then it gets rolled out to us. That would also include the iPhone, by the way, which has also very similar origins in a CIA spy gadget. Now, also, as far as LifeLog goes, I will never forget this. I got into an argument once with the official DARPA account. This was during the early stages of COVID. So this was in like when people were just starting to be at home. I said something like Facebook is LifeLog, and I said something like, DARPA created it. And for whatever reason, like the account decided to reply to me because I had tagged DARPA, saying that Facebook was LifeLog and that LifeLog is part of, total information awareness or whatever, and was part of DARPA. And the official DARPA account responded to me saying, like, no, actually, we're totally not Facebook, blah, 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 blah. And it was really weird because the more I started talking to it, like whoever was responding to me said that they were just a guy in their shorts in Virginia, sitting at home in Virginia. And I'm like, that's such a weird thing for like the official account to say. I screenshotted this conversation too, because I think it got in trouble. Whoever was running the account that was working from home, I guess, got the talking to of like, don't interact with random normies or whatever, like that are asking questions, because other people, when they saw it responding, they started jumping in and dropping like screenshots and links and stuff. And I think that they were like, oh no, we gotta shut this down. I did screenshot that stuff, and I do have it saved somewhere, by the way, on my computer, like in one of my hard drives. I saved that conversation because I thought this was so weird. But let's move on from that. Just understand that all of these products, yes, of course, they are from the military, and it is part of full spectrum dominance, which I think is important to point out. Like, you have no idea how much information they have about you now. It's very disturbing. Now, moving to another concerning article. Secret Pentagon program echoes pedo ring in true detective series. Excuse me. The first season was the best, in my opinion. CARCOSA is an AI-driven program that aims to reduce information overload for soldiers. This is by Ken Klippenstein. That's a creepy... It's kind of creepy, isn't it? The Pentagon is pursuing a high-tech program that will, quote, minimize cognitive burdens on soldiers, according to budget documents released last week. The $40 million plus classified program, codenamed CARCOSA, shares the same name as, quote, The Temple in the first season of the HBO TV series True Detective, a place where an elite pedo ring performs ritual bad things on children. The program is overseen by DARPA, the Pentagon's premier organization funding the development of futuristic weapons and military capabilities. There is, of course, no evidence that the military's CARCOSA is involved in anything like that, but it is unclear why, at a time when the White House has prioritized fighting wrongthink, that DARPA is providing the conspiracy crowd with such fodder. The Intercept reached out to DARPA to inquire whether the elite research agency was aware of the strange coincidence or whether there's a True Detective fan at the agency. DARPA did not respond at time of publication. It should be noted that CARCOSA predates True Detective, so I don't know if the author was aware of that or not. Pentagon's CARCOSA is its own temple of information, an AI-driven aggregator, listen to this, that is intended to acquire, sort, and display the blizzard of information that reflects what is going on a fast-moving future battlefield. Quote, the CARCOSA program is developing and demonstrating cyber technologies for use by warfighters during tactical operations, unquote. DARPA's new fiscal year 2025 budget request says, quote, CARCOSA cyber technology aims to provide warfighters in the field with enhanced situational awareness of their immediate battle space. CARCOSA, DARPA says, will help to minimize, quote, cognitive burden on tactical cyber operators. In other words, headaches caused by the same information overload we all have to deal with every day. Individual cyber warriors on high-intensity battlefields such as Ukraine and Israel are inundated with data from their own communications and IT systems, from a virtual Niagara of intelligence inputs, and from electronic attacks via computers, machines, and drones. On top of it all, the modern battlefield is a venue for, quote, information operations, which seek to manipulate what the enemy sees and believes. CARCOSA will support an Army mission area called Cyberspace and Electromagnetic Activities, or CEMA. Yeah, guys, we've got FEMA, now we've got to have CEMA. More weirdness to keep track of. Which provides battlefield commanders with, quote, technical and tactical advice on all aspects of offensive and defensive cyberspace and electronic warfare operations. The Army says CEMA operators are so inundated with information they need augmented intelligence technology to help sort the signal from the noise. CARCOSA stands for Cyber Augmented Reality and Cyber Operations Suite for Augmented Intelligence. Good Lord. What a mouthful. Quote, augmented reality refers to immersive technology that produces computer-generated images overlaying a user's view of the real world, like Apple's Vision Pro headset. The program supports development of various tech, at least according to vague budget documents, all of which seek to defeat a new reality of combat. Individual soldiers and commanders can't process all of the information they're being bombarded with. The full CARCOSA name, which has not been previously reported, appears in a November $26 million DARPA contract to 26 Labs, a part of 26 Technologies and owned by the Carlyle Group, of course, because of course. 26 Labs says it supplies, quote, situational awareness interfaces for cyber operators to distributed sensor networks, from machine learning models that learn to reverse engineer malware to embedded devices that enable and protect our nation's warfighters, unquote. We want to do everything we can to help the U.S. government and intel community, says 26 Technologies CEO Joe Logue, quote, starting from over here for information operations and influence up through cyber command control and operations. In its 3 years of operations, the Arlington, Virginia-based company has doubled its national security contracts to some $650 million. DARPA's Cyber Augmented Operations, also known as CAOs, CAOs, are a vast spectrum of military programs, many of which seek to enhance, if not replace, humans with machines, says Annie Jacobson, author of The Pentagon's Brain, an uncensored history of DARPA, America's top secret military research agency. Yes, I would, just to spot here, I highly recommend, if you haven't read that book, to read it. She has another book too. I forget what it's called, but it's like about psychic warriors. It's very interesting. I haven't finished it, but I did start it. CARCOSA is also mentioned in a DARPA broad agency announcement released February of 2023. In the announcement, DARPA's Information Innovation Office solicits research proposals to create novel cyber tech for warfighters. CARCOSA, it says, will be a 38-month-long program. At least one other CARCOSA-related contract, this worth $13 million, has been awarded to Chameleon Consulting Group. Very creepy. Which also focuses on information operations per its website. Raytheon Cyber Solutions, Inc., Southwest Research Institute, and SRI International and Battelle Memorial Institute have also received CARCOSA contracts. Though CARCOSA has appeared in the Pentagon's budget since 2022 when DARPA sought initial funding for the program, this year's $41.5 million request represents the largest yet for the program. Quote, for decades now, DARPA has been leading the world in machine learning systems. Jacobson told The Intercept today, this gets called AI, but machine learning is, I think, a more appropriate term of art. Machines are not yet intelligent. Yeah. Time, it would seem, is a flat circle, to quote the iconic line from True Detective, and which has popularly come to denote something we're doomed to repeat again and again and again. Indeed. This is another part of it. On page 212 of the PDF, you can see it yourself. So if you want, I will include that link there for the funding program, which has, again, it mentioned on page 212. Okay, so as Noah points out here, the word CARCOSA was coined by Ambrose Bierce in, quote, an inhabitant of CARCOSA, borrowed by Robert W. Chambers for The King in Yellow. True Detective then borrowed names from Chambers. It is inaccurate to attribute the name to the show. Quite right. What is CARCOSA? Short, realm of the deity Hastur, the Yellow King that the cult worships, also referred to as the infernal plane. Errol is committing ritualistic sacrifices and disposing of bodies there in hopes of joining his god as a tribute. So this is coming from a discussion on what it is. At least in the show, the CARCOSA cult active participation in bad things. Okay, so yeah, that's a little bit sinister. This here is like one of the poems about it. Okay, so now going into this thread here, this is, why we're going into this, because hello, it reminded me of this video, and we will get into it, but I find it very strange. Outer Haven, this sort of concept will put PRISM to shame. You all remember PRISM from the Snowden leaks? How long till we find out the payload that SpaceX is sending into space are actually a networked AI system? Maybe that is why the White House freaked out when they discovered Russia's anti-satellite missiles. The AI was programmed to censor all forms of digital information, including communications, internet traffic, and media broadcasts. So George Washington was an optic neural AI designed to maintain, this is from the Metal Gear Solid, to maintain the Patriot system of control over the U.S. Named after the first president, George Washington, the AI was programmed to censor all forms of digital information, including communications, internet traffic, and media broadcasts. It could also control all weaponry, nuclear and conventional, of the 4 branches of the U.S. military through a tactical computer network. As of 2009, GW was said to be the only system in the world with a parallel processing capacity of 980 trillion hammets. So this is from Metal Gear Solid, but Outer Haven will put PRISM to shame. Yeah, exactly. So, okay, I know CARCOSA name is affiliated with True Detective Season 1. This is much more in line with Metal Gear Solid 2's Arsenal Gear / the Patriot AIs. Yes, indeed. Now, the mythical city-state of CARCOSA, located in the Gobi Desert, was once believed to have been destroyed by its own atomic weapons. However, Arnold Canvera disputed this, claiming that the Carcosan civilization was wiped out when the Illuminati arrived in flying saucers from the planet Vulcan. The phrase "Remember Carcosa" serves as a reminder of this event and has been repeated throughout the Illuminatus series. So that is from the Illuminatus books series there. I think that is wild. Yeah. CARCOSA is its own temple of information, AI-driven aggregator intended to acquire, sort, and display a blizzard of information in a fast-moving future battlefield. It is absolutely this. Okay, or at least that's how it sounds. It is pretty concerning. Outlaw Country says CARCOSA looks like an extension of JH14/15, the dream of integrating all available sensors in an area of interest to provide AI-directed operations with shortened kill chains is more completely realized every day. Picture Google Earth with X-ray vision, providing real-time 3D modeling of the battle space and a dossier on every warm body nearby, but it's blue helmets moving surgically through the suburbs to subdue dissidents. Bandwidth becomes less of a concern as the complexity of the basic models of all areas grow, but 5G and the Internet of Things stuff enables some incredible mapping that's bound to be used against us. Neat, I guess. I thought that was a very interesting comment. Yeah, so just to show you the book, this is just so creepy. Why would DARPA choose a name associated with madness and the occult? I don't know. Why wouldn't they? I guess it's them. Now, this is also interesting. It's about setting people up. So before I play that, I want to, we're now 40 minutes into this. It's much longer than I wanted it to be, but oh well. We're now going to go listen to the codex.
I will triumph over the Patriots.
From the Metal Gear Solid 2, as this is discussing.
And liberate us all, and we will become the Sons of Liberty!
Okay, so pay attention. Here is where it gets very strange. This whole conversation.
Right,
now, I think, from what I remember, is up until this point, Raiden believes he's receiving, like, instructions from, his commander or something, but it turns out that it was actually these AIs that he's been talking to the whole time, which is just crazy to think about.
Receiving, we're still here.
How's that possible? The AI was destroyed!
Only GW.
Who are you?
So GW is what we read about in the thread there. It was the how'd they describe it? It was the optic neural AI designed to maintain the Patriot system control over the US, programmed to censor all forms of information.
To begin with, we're not what you'd call human.
No, this is the AI talking to you.
Over the past 200 years, a kind of consciousness formed layer by layer in the crucible of the White House.
This is so creepy to think about, but like, and listen to the condescending tone in which the AI is speaking to right in here. Just listen.
It's not unlike the way life started in the oceans 4 billion years ago. The White House was our primordial soup, a base of evolution. We are formless. We are the very discipline and morality that Americans invoke so often.
So they're going to go on and they're going to make the argument for why censorship is needed, right? And they are going to bring up some things that are like, you know, you could say they bring up some valid points, which is, again, crazy to think that this is from 2001. So they're basically saying like, no, we're the ones that can make these decisions because, you know, we don't have these flaws that humans have.
How can anyone hope to eliminate us? As long as this nation exists, so will we.
Cut the crap! If you're immortal, why would you take away individual freedoms and censor the net?
So as, you know, I love how he says, cut the crap, because I say that too, you know, when I'm like just annoyed of getting BS'd. Like he's saying, you know, they're framing it, they frame it as like, look, we had to do this because blah, 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 blah. But just remember what it was programmed to do, censor all forms of digital information, including like controlling the media, like everything. It's control of everything.
Jack, don't be silly.
Don't you know that our plans have your interests, not ours, in mind?
What?
Jack, listen carefully, like a good boy.
The mapping of the human genome was completed early this century. As a result, the evolutionary log of the human race lay open to us.
We started with genetic engineering, and in the end, we succeeded in digitizing life itself.
Does this, I don't know, does it sound a little bit creepy? Does it sound eerily familiar?
But there are things not covered by genetic information.
And so some of the things that they end up talking about, like they're talking about the concept sort of like memes and how memes evolve, and they liken it to sort of like a genetic process.
What do you mean?
Human memories, ideas, culture, history.
Genes don't contain any record of human history.
Is it something that should not be passed on? Should that information be left at the mercy of nature?
We've always kept records of our lives, through words, pictures, symbols, from tablets to books.
But not all the information was inherited by later generations.
Yeah.
A small percentage of the whole was selected and processed, then passed on. Not unlike genes, really.
So yeah, they're saying, they're likening it to like, oh, this is just sort of like natural selection, you know, with all of this information, we have to have a system for doing this. So they're making right now the argument for why it was necessary to do this.
That's what history is, Jack.
But in the current digitized world, trivial information is accumulating every second, preserved in all its triteness, never fading, always accessible.
Yeah, I mean, this is very true, especially now in the current context of, you know, generative AI and the fact that like you now can't trust what you're seeing. You know, people don't know if Kate Middleton, if that video was AI generated. There are people analyzing it saying it looks like it is. Like, this is what they're describing, how, you know, you've got this just sea of information. And again, a lot of what they're saying is true. It's just that the solution to it is incorrect.
Rumors about petty issues, misinterpretations, slander.
All this junk data, preserved in an unfiltered state, growing at an alarming rate.
So they're saying you got all of this stuff, right? And think about this, and I know you guys know. pretty much any person with a camera now has the ability to kind of put themselves online, to create a channel, to start talking about things that maybe they're not really that informed on. So they're saying you've got all of this data, and someone needed to filter it, because what else would happen? Oh, we can't allow humans to do that themselves.
It will only slow down social progress, reduce the rate of evolution.
Because we need progress, we have to force it, right? I mean, that's really what they want to do.
Right? You seem to think that our plan is one of censorship.
Are you telling me it's not?
You're being silly. What we propose to do is not to control content, but to create context.
Yeah, does this sound familiar? Because it sounds like the argument we get from every single so-called disinformation expert, or whatever they like to call themselves. They're just neo-Stasi operators, and this is what they say. Oh, we have to create context. We have to provide context for you. We have to interpret things for you. Oh, it's not control, it's context.
Create context.
The digital society furthers human flaws and selectively rewards development of convenient half-truths. Just look at the strange juxtapositions of morality around you.
Billions spent on new weapons in order to humanely murder other humans.
Rights of criminals are given more respect than the privacy of their victims.
Wow. The foreshadowing, I mean, it's just crazy that, again, to think that this was 2001 and they're talking about, like, literally the world that we're living in right now. It's nuts.
Although there are people suffering in poverty, huge donations are made to protect endangered species. Everyone grows up being told the same thing.
Be nice to other people.
But beat out the competition.
You're special. Believe in yourself and you will succeed.
But it's obvious from the start that only a few can succeed.
Yeah.
You exercise
indeed.
your right to freedom, and this is the result.
That bad freedom, this is the result of it. No, you can't have that. We have to do it for you. We have to have these managers, these gatekeepers, these controllers, filtering it for you in the background.
All rhetoric to avoid conflict and protect each other from hurt. The untested truths, spun by different interests, continue to churn and accumulate in the
Indeed.
sandbox of political correctness and value systems.
Yeah.
Everyone withdraws into their own small gated community, afraid of a larger forum.
Oh my gosh. This is like even more so now, because you had a bunch of weirdos that fled Twitter after Elon Musk acquired the platform, and now they're moving to defederated social media like the Fediverse. And so you have people that are spread out into these small niche corners of the internet, and they're not interacting with each other. They just talk to people who think like themselves, and they tend to be online like terminally.
They stay inside their little ponds, leaking whatever truth suits them into the growing cesspool of society at large.
The different cardinal truths neither clash nor mesh. No one is invalidated, but nobody is right.
That right there is it. Think about that quote. Nobody is invalidated, but nobody is right. Does that not describe like the current reality? What do you guys think?
Not even natural selection can take place here. The world is being engulfed in truth.
And this is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but a whimper.
We're trying to stop that from happening.
It's
We're
our
the good
responsibility
guys.
as rulers.
We're the good guys. We're just trying to be responsible for you. We have to prevent, these people need to be, we have to tell them what to think for them in order to help them.
Just as in genetics, unnecessary information
Listen.
and memory must be filtered out.
Unnecessary information and memory must be filtered out. What were we just reading about? Project Carcosa, what does it seek to do? Filter out what they call and deem unnecessary information for their cyber operators. They say, well, they're inundated with all this information. We need to have an AI system in place that can filter out right? Think about this. This is nuts. And so we go into a place where, think about BCIs proliferating, where everybody's got something like a neural link in their head, and then you've got an AI program that can filter out memories you have that it sees as unnecessary. And again, it sounds like crazy to imagine that that could be the future, but just look where we are now. We already have a first human patient of a Neuralink.
To stimulate the evolution of the species.
And you think you're qualified to decide what's necessary and not?
Absolutely. Who else could wade through the sea of garbage you people produce, retrieve valuable truths, and even interpret their meaning for later generations?
So they're saying, well, the AI, and this is, like I said, they are already looking into AI controlling weaponry, so no longer having human operators. They have AI looking into writing laws on like international conflict and things like this. Like, they want the AI to be controlling everything, and the reason they want to do that is because they're going to say the AI doesn't make, the mistakes humans make, and that the AI doesn't have the same kind of human limitations, right? All humans are subject to their own biases, their own interests and desires, sometimes short-term desire to profit or something like this. They're going to say, well, the AI doesn't have that. The AI doesn't have a profit motive. It's not self-interested. They're going to make the argument that the AI should be in control of everything.
That's what it means to create context.
I'll decide for myself what to believe and what to pass on.
But is that even your own idea?
Or something Snake told you.
That's the proof of your incompetence right there. You lack the qualifications to exercise free will.
That's not true. I have the right.
Does something like a self exist inside of you?
That which you call self serves as nothing more than a mask to cover your own being.
In this era of ready-made truths, self is just something used to preserve those positive emotions that you occasionally feel.
Isn't this insane? Like, I just don't even know what to say.
Another possibility is that self is a concept you conveniently borrowed under the logic that would endow you with some sense of strength.
They're basically taunting him, and they're saying, these ideas you have about your freedom, your rights, who do you think gave you that? They're like, how do you think that those thoughts you have are your own? That's literally like what they're doing to him right now. That's what they're saying. They're essentially saying that everything you believe because from the time you've been born, we have been you've been propagandized, right? And that's why they're saying...
That's crap!
Is it?
How do you know that they're saying?
Would you prefer that someone else tell you? All right then. Explain it to him.
Jack, you're simply the best. And you got there all by yourself.
Oh, what happened? Do you feel lost? Why not try a bit of soul searching?
Don't think you'll find anything, though.
Ironic that although self is something that you yourself fashioned, every time something goes wrong, you turn around and place the blame on something else.
It's not my fault. It's not your fault.
In denial, you simply resort to looking for another, more convenient truth in order to make yourself feel better.
Leaving behind in an instant the so-called truth you once embraced.
Should someone like that be able to decide what is truth?
So they're essentially saying, look, you humans are petty, you're irrational, you're illogical, you will move from one thing to the next, you'll change your beliefs at the drop of the hat. You think somebody like that should be able to decide what's true and not? Of course not.
Should someone like you even have the right to decide?
You've done nothing but abuse your freedom.
You don't deserve to be free.
We're not the ones smothering the world. You are.
The individual is supposed to be weak, but far from powerless. A single person has the potential to ruin the world.
And the age of digitized communication has given even more power to the individual. Too much power for an immature species.
And again, think about this, 2001, that was in the early ages, the dawn of like the computers, social media. we had nothing like TikTok at that time. I just think this is insane watching now.
Building a legacy involves figuring out what is wanted and what needs to be done for that goal. All this you used to struggle with. Now we think for you.
We are your guardians, after all.
Oh, we're just your guardians. We're just looking out for you. We know what's best for you.
You want to control human thought? Human behavior?
Of course. Anything can be quantified nowadays. That's what this exercise was designed to prove.
You fell in love with me just as you were meant to, after all. Isn't that right, Jack?
Ocelot was not told the whole truth, to say the least.
We rule an entire nation. Of what interest would a single soldier, no matter how able, be to us?
The S3 plan does not stand for solid snake simulation. What it does stand for is selection for societal sanity.
How crazy. I mean, this is what is being... They're already talking about creating these systems now. Like, this is happening. This is going to be your pre-crime. This is going to be connected to, you know, the... everything. Like you're gonna have a social credit score. You know, we now have a national red flag center. Like, it is, the police state has already been created. They're just waiting to slowly roll it out.
The S3 is a system for controlling human will and consciousness. S3 is not you.
Remember how earlier in the video, in this video, we were reading from the article from Unlimited Hangout on BCIs, and they were talking about DARPA's non-surgical human brain, brain-computer interface or whatever it was called, N3. This is S3.
Soldier trained in the image of Solid Snake. It is a method, a protocol that created a circumstance that made you what you are.
So you see, we're the S3, not you.
How insane is that? That's just nuts.
What you experienced was the final test of its effectiveness.
That's crazy.
You heard what President Johnson said.
The Arsenal's GW system is the key to their supremacy.
The objective of this exercise was to establish such a method.
Wow.
We used Shadow Moses as a paradigm for the exercise.
I wonder if you would have preferred a fantasy setting.
We chose that backdrop because of its extreme circumstances. It was an optimal test for S3's crisis management capacity. If the model could trigger, control, and solve this, it would be ready for any contingency.
Think about that. This is insane.
And now, we have our proof.
You got tricked, son. Yeah, it's all about, this whole thing is all about...
There are also reasons behind your selection.
It is all about the control and dissemination of information.
Solidus raised plenty of other child soldiers. Do you know why we chose you over them? It was because you were the only one who refused to acknowledge the past. All the others remember what they were and pay for it daily.
But you turn your back on everything you don't like. You do whatever you like, see only the things you like, and for yourself alone.
Yes, Rose can attest to that.
You refused to see me for what I was. I lied to you, but I wanted to be caught. You pretended to be understanding, to be a gentleman.
Whoa.
You never made a conscious attempt to reach out to me. The only time you did was when I gave you no choice but to do so.
I was just trying not to...
What? Trying not to hurt me? Dear, the one you were trying not to hurt was yourself. Avoiding the truth under the guise of kindness is all that you did. It occurred to you to do nothing but look out for yourself. Even if you claim that it was for my sake, that feeling was nowhere to be seen. In the end, everything was for your sake. I was never part of the picture.
Exactly right. So you see, you're a perfect representative of the masses we need to protect.
Isn't this this insane? They're like, yeah, you're so dumb and you're so self-interested. We had to, look, we have to do things for you. We have to protect you from yourself, because you're so inept and whatnot. Now, this I encourage you to listen to. It is about controlling and corralling people also, but in this case, pigs. So they're setting them up and they go through this process of how they first condition them to the open field. Then they instruct an enclosure, but they leave the gates open and they allow them to feed for a few days so they start feeling safe. And it relies on children, it relies on the younger hogs going into the enclosure first. They're the first to go in. The parents are initially weary. They use the little ones and they're naivete and they go first, and then the adults who would have been more weary, then they start going in. And so you can see how they're all being funneled in to the enclosure, but before they slam the gates on them and lock them in, right, before they get stuck in there and start running around, you see that they have time where they're just in the open field and they're just kind of walking around. So they give them a false sense of security before pulling the rug out from under them. And I would suggest that the same is going on here with this ability to suddenly speak freely on these platforms that we know have always been part of the control system. And I'd suggest there's a reason for that. Now, I just wanted to add this as we close out the video. It went much longer than I anticipated. Filming your front porch without a warrant is now fair game. A federal court says privacy rights are diminished due to the proliferation of video cameras throughout society. So I just want you to imagine if that's true. They're saying now that because cameras are ubiquitous, that means that now feds and police can monitor and film the outside of your home for months at a time until, gathering information on you so they can charge you with a crime. This is just insanity. And this is the legal argument that's being made. Well, think too, when AI becomes more ubiquitous, what that's going to mean for your privacy or for your mental privacy, right? As things like BCIs, Neuralink, brain computer interfaces become more widespread or more adopted, they're going to make arguments that your mental privacy is diminished. Think about it. So I'll just read part of this. Law enforcement in Kansas recorded the front of a man's home for 68 days straight, 15 hours a day, and obtained evidence to prove him guilty on 16 charges. The officers did not have a search warrant, using a camera on a pole positioned across the street to capture the home. A federal court ruled Tuesday it was fine for law enforcement to do so, in what's potentially a major reduction in privacy law. Quote, Mr. Hay had no reasonable expectation of privacy in a view of the front of his house, said the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in its decision on U.S. versus Hay. Quote, as video cameras proliferate throughout society, regrettably, the reasonable expectation of privacy from filming is diminished. Let's scroll down. The federal court's decision says that video cameras have become ubiquitous and have therefore diminished our expectations of privacy. Police officers wear body cams now, cell phones have cameras, and many doorbells record your porch. The court isn't wrong. Cameras are everywhere. However, law enforcement has a history of blurring the lines of privacy with modern recording technology. Politico detailed how Ring handed over a full day's worth of camera footage against a man's will in order to convict his neighbor of a crime. Yeah. Which is insane. The network of Ring cameras was also used by law enforcement for years to obtain footage of criminals without getting search warrants. That's just ridiculous. Invasive searches of private property typically require that law enforcement obtain a search warrant. In this case, VA officers received a tip Hay was not actually disabled, so they went ahead with recording his house without getting a warrant, and the court agreed that that was okay because anybody walking by could have seen what the camera saw. However, most people walking by your house aren't sitting there for 2 months straight with sophisticated recording devices recording, hours a day, 24/7. I mean, that is insane. It says that recording outside the home for months at a time can paint a pretty intimate picture of your life. Hay argued this allowed law enforcement to learn his habits, understand when he entered and exited his home, and who came to his house. I think that's insane. So apparently, according to this case, the front of your house is no longer considered private. And I just want to bring this up. Also, we'll close it out on this. Revolving door lobbyists help defense contractors get off to a strong start, just so everyone understands how this works. The defense sector hired dozens of former Armed Services Committee and DoD personnel last year, with more swinging through the so-called revolving door to lobby on behalf of defense sector clients for the first time in the first quarter of 2023, a new open secrets analysis of federal lobbying disclosures found. At least 672 former government officials, military officers, members of Congress worked as lobbyists, board members, and executives for the top 20 defense companies in 2022, according to a report released by Senator Elizabeth Warren Wednesday. And, it's funny to me that this is coming from her, of all people. Like, why is nobody else reporting on this? You'd think that this is something that is like pretty concerning for everybody and would be like a bipartisan concern, but no. The practice is widespread in the defense industry, giving at minimum the appearance of corruption and favoritism, potentially increasing the chance DoD spending results in ineffective weapons systems and programs, bad deals, and waste of taxpayer dollars. Yes, exactly. I would suggest that's been going on for a long time now. You all know about the scandals that we have with some of this military spending of like $500 for a screwdriver. There's obviously a scam being run here, you know what I mean? And this is the case for many of the defense spending, I would say. All right, well, this video is much longer than I initially intended. That's all I have for now. I hope you guys have a good day. Bye!